A little matter. Hero strode in, his flapping black cloak barely missing the half-full cups of wine sitting on the edges of the tables, and stopped dead in the center of the room, a frown forming on his face. Blaring music annoyed his ears, people were smiling and laughing, and there were even some scientists with their subordinates dancing together on the dance floor.
"Disgusting,"
said the guider, loud enough for the wall sensors to hear, and he swished further into the party, searching. Julie knew who he was looking for. She soon felt the guider's piercing gaze burning a hole in her direction. The media had painted Guider Hero as always, focused on rational thought and government laws. Frivolous things like parties and religions were an annoyance, so a Christmas party would be doubly so. Even so, Julie was very happy he was here.
"This had better be good, subordinate,"
the guider's voice boomed.
"I have an interview with Larry King III at 2 p.m.
Julie turned, nodded, and bowed, looking at the floor as the meeting rules dictated.
I am humbled by your presence, Guider. But we must adjourn to my hexicle immediately.
She then looked directly at him.
And, with reference to your interview, you may need to cancel.
Without another word, Julie led the guider away from the revelers and towards an antechamber off to the end of the ancient converted church. Soon the guider was staring at a holographic display floating in the middle of Julie's hexicle. Surrounded by an assortment of scientific equipment, it was difficult to make out the image with all the bright reflections. And so Julie quickly lowered the lights, increased the contrast, and pointed as the images it showed became clearer.
The clumps of dark matter in the Oort cloud sampled by Voyager 10,
Julie began,
isn't exactly what we think it is.
Guider Hero stared at the image, a standard time-delayed multi-holosnap stitched together by an AI, and raised his eyebrows. The outlines of the clumps were quite obviously dark matter. Every school kid would recognize them.
"What are you talking about?"
he asked carefully.
47 independent tests of the data confirm that it's dark matter.
Yes,
said Julie quickly.
Yes, it's dark matter. Yes, many clouds of it. But my research says it is something more than that we've been looking at dark matter from the wrong perspective.
Guider Hero looked around the small room, as though worried about being overheard, then sighed, knowing that everything in the building was being recorded anyway. He looked back at Julie.
"You do know what this means, don't you?"
He shook his head and looked into space, frowning again, as though imagining some terrible ordeal.
"If there is further information to this discovery, then I need to do another of those damn press conferences."
Sorry, sir,
said Julie, a tentative smile on her lips.
but evidence suggests dark matter isn't just coalesced spinning matter in tiny black holes.
Then she took a breath, as what she was about to tell him would either make her look stupid or cause more problems than they were worth.
I think it, or the particles it is made from, might be alive.
For a moment the guider looked at her, his eyes flicking back and forth. Then he put his hands in his pockets, leaned back, and laughed.
"Oh, I see,"
he said, raising his voice for the security AI, then taking his hands out and spreading his arms wide.
"You think the dark matter might be groups of aliens?"
He looked down on her and gave her a look of condescension, then took one of her hands before she had a chance to protest.
"Thank you for a most amusing meeting. Don't call me a third time."
With that, he quickly turned and left the hexicle, the door flap opening and closing behind him. Momentarily stunned by the sudden about-face, Julie pulled herself together.
That's it then,
she said in a loud and disappointed voice, then immediately shut the holodisplay down. The guider knew something. More than that, in her hand was now a private encoded number, an address with an entry code, with all numbers divisible by 3. But this was so unexpected. The guider would never do anything like that. Secret codes, secret meetings, fake behavior. Quickly replaying a few video interviews in her mind, she soon discovered he'd always been doing it. Was everything fake? Julie knew she now had a choice. She could pretend she didn't understand his message and announce her findings to her group tonight as planned, or she could follow this much more important lead and see where it took her. Deciding on the latter, she turned and began collecting information from her computers. She transferred her data to a portable, made a backup in the cloud, activated an encrypted will, and headed out of the hexicle, locking it behind her. Not that it would do much good. If this was already known, who knows how many government departments were already actively locking the information down. For all she knew, her office could be scheduled for a missile strike, though that was highly unlikely, probably. Her mind whirled, suddenly overcome with conspiracy theories and concerns for her life, but she forcefully pushed away the natural higher emotions that come with evenings and tiredness and looked at the situation rationally. She knew she would be followed, but if she left now, she would make it to the safe place quickly, and the drones would receive a confusion signal and end up back to base with their memories wiped. She was probably safe for now. Taking a final look around the office she'd practically lived in for the past 10 years, she closed up, nodded at the Christmas revelers, and left. The shielded meeting room indicated by the coordinates was not far away, and the well-lit paths brimming with partygoers helped her disappear for the few minutes she needed. For the first time in her life, she was afraid of the government. If everything anyone ever said in politics was fake, was there anything that was actually real? Then again, if the dark matter was alive, politics would be the least of her worries. Julie looked about what she assumed to be Guida Hero's office. It was Spartan. He never married. No pictures of family. No calendar girls. Was he gay? As her gay friends might say, the place looked straightened up. History says he spent much of his time in Akihabara when he was a kid, when it was the place for comic books and manga decades ago, and he didn't fall into the normal pattern of family photos and shelves with books. What did people refer to Japanese geeks as? Otaku? Hikikomori? Or maybe he was so PC that he had to hide everything about himself, conceal everything for better votes. Now, she didn't know who he really was, and had begun falling back on stereotypes and racial profiling. But as she'd just had her belief about someone so suddenly pulled out from under her, going back to default settings was the only thing she had until she knew more. She shook her head. Her mind wouldn't focus. She was so worried that she was turning to anything to analyze. The patterned carpet would probably be next. Deep breaths. What next? She daren't check her phone in a safe place. Think. When would he arrive? Then she realized that Guida Hero was already seated in a high-back leather chair facing the wall. There was a large mahogany table in between them. If he turned around, wearing an eye patch and holding a white cat, she would not be surprised. There was a click as the door locked behind her, and another leather chair turned invitingly towards her. She grinned, despite herself, and this simple offer helped her relax. Guida Hero might portray himself as being cold, but he was no villain. She took the seat gratefully, and he turned to face her. Then she noticed what was on the table, and gasped. A cube-shaped glass bottle with a stopper sat there glittering in the light. Guida Hero winked at her, and quickly reached for it. She hadn't seen something like it in years, perhaps decades. Not since the Sand Wars had meant glass prices had gone through the roof. It must be decades old. And how old was the enticing brown liquid inside?
Hibiki 17.
Asked the Guida, pouring the rare Japanese whiskey over a ball of ice in an equally rare drinking glass. He filled it to almost halfway, and handed it to her before she had a chance to reply. Hibiki 17? The drink must be worth thousands.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Guider Hero.
She stuttered in shock.
Oh, Julie, just call me Hero. I'm very happy that you found what I had always expected.
Julie almost dropped her glass.
Come again?
The dark matter. It's not really left over from the beginning of the universe, is it? It's been created by aliens formed after the universe was created.
Julie stared at him incredulously.
Is that what you've always thought? Your presentation a few hours ago suggested otherwise.
Oh, that was just for the fake news team. They love that stuff. I've had your idea in mind for the past year, as everything fits. Who do you think signed the grant for the mission in the first place? And why would your center be only a short walk from this area? I've been following these developments for a long time, and now your research has finally confirmed it.
He raised his glass to her.
Kanpai.
He downed the liquid in one gulp, the ice briefly clacking against his standard-issue government plastic veneer teeth, then looked over his rimless glasses at her, waiting for her response. Julie decided to sip hers. The bouquet was almost like perfume, with oak and floral notes, smells she hadn't encountered since she was a child, and to taste such exotic and rare alcohol in an actual glass, it was worth savoring. She brought herself back to the present.
You have studied my latest research?
Just before I came to you. You notice things. You have noticed things. What was the old word my parents used to use as kids? Woke. You can put two and two together, where many in government still complain about which one should go with which other one. I was particularly fascinated by your work on their orbits, how you looked past the AI's guesstimated hollow images to figure out their real paths.
The orbits.
The lack of orbits.
The weight redistribution.
As though using its own mass to shoot for a new target.
You agree!
said Julie, almost breathlessly.
Not only that, you understand it all.
The guider became silent. He placed his glass down, then formed a pyramid with his fingers, and leaned back in his chair.
I think they're alive. Well, as alive as micro-drones could be.
This was way beyond what Julie had been conjecturing. She had thought they might be limited alien organisms, evolved to live off the radiation of space, traveling between the stars, perhaps densified bacteria absorbing light to grow. She hadn't considered the possibility that they might be some kind of remote alien equipment. Tiny equipment.
Drones? Alien drones? All the dark matter in the universe are drones?
Hero nodded.
Can you imagine me telling this to Solar News, or even the USN? People would have embolisms.
Hiro leaned forward, conspiratorially.
We need to keep this under wraps, until we know of the Cloud's plans. Until it arrives, let's continue to say dark matter is from the beginning of the universe. For the sake of the people, you understand?
Julie looked at him, then looked down at his delicious glass of Japanese whiskey.
Well, when you put it like that.
He said.
I knew you would understand,
said Hiro, grinning, pouring another glass for himself.
You're officially promoted. Your pay will increase as of today. From tomorrow, I'd like you to take over the press conferences too. Actually, you're the one I've been looking for the past 10 years. Someone to take over my position. There is no career path for a guider. We just fall into it. And I'm tired of not being myself. I'd like to retire and go cosplaying again.
Julie just let her mouth fall open and hang there. There really wasn't anything else she could say. Then she picked up her glass and swallowed everything in one gulp, the ice nestling against her painted lips as she drank.
That's my girl,
said Hiro, beaming widely. He lifted the cube-shaped bottle and turned it towards Julie's glass.
Another?
He asked. Julie couldn't say no. Voyager 11 was closing in on the dark matter clouds, having recently completed a slingshot maneuver around Jupiter. While still millions of miles away, its cameras were close enough to capture them quite clearly. The clumps were heading towards the center of the solar system, seemingly drawn this way and that by the gravity of several dwarf planets and random Kuiper Belt objects on the way. But Guider Julie knew that wasn't the case. She knew those clumps were changing course, but their relative distance had meant no one really knew this for certain. The new AI craft was equipped with live holocam feeds, well, about 2 hours behind, and people were watching the videos closely, with no idea that this dark matter was not just matter shifting at the whims of gravity. Julie had a prepared statement, but she was worried about the panic that was likely to ensue if it wasn't believed. Civilian scientists' projections of dark matter trajectories suggested that the clumps would skirt over Saturn's icy and rocky rings and plunge straight into the atmosphere, causing an explosion visible from Earth. Of course, she knew that wouldn't happen, and she'd had a talk with a scientist who had made it his life's work to observe the dark matter cloud. Cho was unlikely to talk about it either, though he did appreciate the bottle of baijiu she had plied him with last week. She gave him an extra one to remind him, but she admitted she wasn't too sure which was more surprising for him, that she had been able to get some of his grandfather's favorite drink, or that real potatoes had been used. She sighed. It had been so long since she'd seen a real potato. She missed them. The image beeped and cleared. The AI had adjusted its position with an EM pulse, and its cameras were now transmitting the cloud's image at 1,000 megapixels, covering the entire range of the human eye and then some. For the audience with holosailings, the view must be amazing. Then again, she knew that only a tiny percentage of system residents were watching. They had their own lives to live, and with most having their own interplanetary transport, were quite happy with the occasional Earth-Moon-Mars circuit, and weren't that interested in visiting anywhere else. Visiting Saturn was like visiting Australia in the old days. Too far away, too expensive, but still on the to-do list. At least the human race had that going for them. Too far away from Earth meant they were also too far away from the clouds. Julie hoped that meant they had at least a few years left. She sat in her little double hexicle, looking at the holoview that spread above her, and held her breath. If it was a natural cloud, tiny ice particles would be drawn up to it as it passed over. The gas giant would pull it into orbit, and it would circle a few times before exploding in the atmosphere. She zoomed the image and gasped at the sudden change in course. Really, did they have to make it so obvious? The clumps had turned 90 degrees at a fast clip, almost ignoring physics. They quickly left the Saturn system and began their high-speed path towards the orbit of Jupiter. Julie rubbed her face. She was going to have to give her cover-up speech, but now she realized how unconvincing it would be. She had to wait a few more minutes. She needed to know the projected destination. She knew the AI was calculating, and its unique vantage point would give an answer soon. She didn't want the world going crazy yet. Still, with everyone now constantly finding weird stuff happening in space, hopefully they'll just put this down to another one of those. Then the AI projected the new course of the clouds, and the world took a collective breath. Julie just stared, stunned. Suddenly, her hexagonal dome was filled with message after message from around the world. They had seen it, and they wanted answers. And the questions most often asked were, dash dash. Why Jupiter? Why Europa? She sighed and posted the prepared answer.
Gravity in the solar system is not constant. Where there are higher concentrations of gravity, there are different time speeds too. It's interesting how something can be strongly affected by time and gravity. As far as we can ascertain, as a result of the tiny atmospheres surrounding the asteroid-sized icy chunks circling Saturn, the clouds have been forced into a gravity slip and thrown out of Saturn's orbit. Perhaps there is something we don't understand about dark matter that would cause this reaction between the electromagnetic fields. We will continue to monitor the cloud's new trajectory. At this stage, the AI can only project based on a few minutes of travel.
And then she decided to add something to keep the conspiracy theorists busy.
There has always been this theory that aliens, or perhaps even humans from a previous rise of our civilization, had created a hexagonal reflection system on the top of Saturn. If anything dangerous entered the solar system that could be of risk to the inner planets, and Saturn wasn't able to deal with it, then the planet would pass the ball to Jupiter, so to speak, and Jupiter would absorb it. Jupiter has been our vacuum for a very long time. Perhaps it wants to suck up this dark matter. In any case, it'll be another year or two before it gets there. We'll know then. Thank you for watching.
Julie sat back after posting the video. A moment later, her tri-orbit media stats indicated 2,500,000 or so shares and 10 million likes. It looked hopeful. Perhaps most would not think that the clumps had deliberately changed course, and for those that did, they'd been drowned out by the other conspiracy theory, or even forgotten. Crisis averted for another few years. She headed off to her next meeting. A Christmas party had been organized at the observatory, and Guide Julie frowned as she entered the throng. Lots of young people fraternizing with their mentors. She looked disapprovingly at their behavior, then shrugged.
Getting too old for this sort of thing,
she said loudly for the censors. A middle-aged Myanmarese called Cho was standing to attention when she went further into the room. Guide Julie looked down on him with a wrinkled frown, her greying hair covering her yellowing eyes. She still hadn't found a replacement, but knew that it probably wouldn't matter much now. Still, Cho had been in her mind for a while. She wondered if he still remembered their drink years ago. Cho looked a little nervous as he handed Guide Julie a MindView plug-in.
They've entered Earth orbit. They'll be here in days. Are you going to tell them now?
MindView,
said Julie distastefully and put the V unit into her ear, feeling the vibrations in her skull begin to create an image in her mind. Instantly, a close-up view of a particle from the dark matter cloud appeared. A reflective sphere sparkling green and red with etched horizontal lines across its surface.
Is that a lens?
She asked, pointing at the air.
Yes, Guider,
said Cho.
As far as we can tell, the drones are equipped with mini cameras. This close, we can employ absolutely every ground-based sensor around the planet. We can even rebuild them from scratch. Taking them apart is impossible. The surface is made of dwarf star matter. It would require 100,000 nuclear missiles or a supernova to destroy just one of them.
The aliens built them well. But what are the cameras actually for?
Julie used her imagination to turn the image around, but without much skill using a mind view, it kept turning inside out like a boiling amoeba.
To take images, yes. But are they first contact drones? Galactic mapping drones? Or something else?
The cameras look like they're designed to photograph small things,
said Cho.
Like really small things. Bacteria, viruses, cells, anything microscopic, really.
And the reason they went to Europa?
Water moon, hidden oceans might harbor life.
But the cameras are too small.
Bacteriological life,
said Cho. He flicked his fingers, and a new image appeared in Julie's mind. Julie looked at the mass of DNA structures confused. The dark matter drone cloud was only interested in bacteria? What if all they wanted was to take pictures of bacterium, wherever they were? What about the host? She began to suspect where Cho was heading with this.
After they left Europa, we got Voyager 20 out there to take samples.
He continued.
As suspected, the moon is a bacteriological haven, and most scientists just stopped there. But my knowledge is in reversing converted states.
It was then she realized what she was looking at. Broken cells that could form a thick membrane, much like skin. There had been more advanced life on Europa. Now there wasn't. Julie wiped the image from her mind and removed the buzzing MindView attachment.
When this cloud reaches Earth and realizes that bacteria is the dominant life form on this planet, what do you think will happen here?
Cho grimaced. He wasn't shaking because of her. He was shaking because of his discovery. He sighed and turned to see the dancers and drinkers on the floor. Fake wine in fake plastic glasses, Christmas decorations for a celebration that everyone had long forgotten the reason for, and workers quite literally letting their hair down. The plastic floor was awash with various wigs from different stylists. Subconsciously, Julie reached to twirl her long-ago lost locks, then changed her fingers to stroking her front fringe attachment.
Well,
They're going to take pictures of bacterium on Earth and send them back to their alien masters,
said Cho.
My evidence suggests that life just above the level of bacteria might have a problem with them. But it's possible, Guider, that macro life might not even notice.
Julie shook her head.
you don't have to be careful with me, you know. I'm not stupid.
She poked him in the shoulder.
What do you think would happen if a group of tourists suddenly prodded you with picture drones and selfie sticks and tried to get photos of your organs? More to the point, tiny specks of dwarf star warping time and space around you. You'd be jumping out of your skin, quite literally.
Cho's mouth opened, then closed again.
I'd assumed something so advanced would consider the macroscopic world.
Well, I guess we'll know in a few days. And, by the way, I'm promoting you to Guider.
She placed her hand on his arm link and transferred her authorization.
Congratulations. I'm going back to my home to await the inevitable.
She turned to leave, her aging body struggling but failing to make it away smoothly. Cho was surprised, pleased and saddened all at once. It was all quite sudden.
But why now?
I'm getting too old for this shit. And besides, I have just one bottle of whiskey left and I plan to enjoy it.
Guider Cho had revealed the information to an incredulous population, which meant a rapid launch of just about every available privately owned interplanetary craft. No one could have foreseen the mass of vehicles exiting the atmosphere. A metal circle in unison, AI controls all adjusting to fit into a perfect travel grid, all using the exact amount of power to reach orbit, take a turn around the Earth, and launch at high speed towards Mars. Everyone grabbed what they could to be part of it, including canisters of oxygen, and headed out of orbit. But as no colonies had been built on Mars or the Moon yet, it was unknown what they would do once they got there. There were some that hoped the dark matter would leave Earth quickly, but when they saw the slowly browning wave wash across the world from left to right, knew there was no way they could go back. Others worked quickly to arrange a landing base near Olympus Mons, where all the ships could be linked around the mountain, a new colony on Mars, within networked interplanetary vehicles. But many knew that this could not work. As unbelievable as it sounded, no one had brought seeds with them. The new colony had no way of feeding themselves. The ones that were left behind, the remaining Solarites, had no defense against the cloud's touristic obsession with photographing bacterium. The drones were so excited by their discovery of centillions of bacteriological types in animals and plants that they ripped apart biomasses in moments to image the bacterium within. Soon, bacteria were no longer the dominant life form on planet Earth. They were the only life. The last camera sank under the brown bacteria sludge, and ex-guider Julie waved her hand across the holoscreen, disabling it. The Earth was dead, humanity was dying, and the dark matter continued to gleefully take pictures of bacterium. She knew that when they had finished with Earth, they would explore the solar system again and find the remaining humans starving on Mars. But perhaps, in her privately built airtight bunker with reinforced walls and ceiling 100 kilometers under the surface, she was safe from their prying lenses. Perhaps they wouldn't find her here. Perhaps they'd leave first, and she'd be the last human alive, apart from those equally hiding elsewhere. Hoping against hope, she reached out and took the lid off the bottle of the last Hibiki 17, found in a shipwreck off the north coast of Scandiland just last year. She poured herself a glass, straight, and threw some of it to the back of her throat. The burning liquid coursed down, spreading a warmth and mild numbness throughout her body. With no more images of the surface, she raised her glass to the 10 billion that had lost their lives and downed the rest. Perhaps she would survive. Perhaps she could use her cells to restart the human race. She used to be a scientist before she had become a guider. Anything was possible. But then she felt it, as though the pressure had changed in her bunker. Or was it the gravity? Then she saw them. Julie sighed and sat humbly as a few specks of dark matter headed inexorably and unstoppably towards her. It was just a little matter, hardly anything. Surely this wouldn't be too painful. Perhaps she'd survive. Perhaps. She reached out her hand, feeling a faint pull like her skin was being pinched from a distance, and watched as the specks shifted through her palm as though it wasn't there. Then she raised her eyebrows as little flashes of light went off under her veins. She laughed at the absurdity, feeling her body's bonds simply break apart painlessly, and wondered if the bacteria inside her were smiling for the cameras.